Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyam Om.
Welcome, everybody. As you know, we are inviting our guest Shining World teachers to join us on the satsang. And tonight we are very privileged to have Lucua from South Africa, who's a dear friend of ours and a very established and experienced teacher of Vedanta in South Africa. She's not known to any of you, probably. I don't know if anyone's written to her. She's got a very successful Vedanta group in South Africa, where she teaches several one-year courses. And she has agreed to join us tonight and talk about two of the main obstacles to liberation. So without further ado, Lucua, thank you very much for joining us. And I hand over to you. Please pin yourself. And we look forward to hearing and sharing in what you have to say.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I would like to start off by just offering my gratitude to James, Ramji, to Shining World and Sundri. I don't think any of this would be possible without them, so I'm eternally grateful for them. I met James at a talk in 2014, and I've been privileged to attend a lot of his seminars from then to now. As part of this series of Living the Teaching, I will share the two pitfalls that I observe as the biggest impediments to liberation. Firstly, a disclaimer. I'm an introductory teacher. I teach entry-level courses. I see it as Vedanta for all, which means that I teach seekers and business people alike. I have yet to meet an ailment that Vedanta will not remedy. So if it's in my practice or if it's people that come to class, I truly see the value of what Vedanta and self-knowledge can bring to them. And precisely the idea that we can do enlightenment is probably one of the biggest obstacles that I observe. So just for a moment, I'm going to give a bit of feedback of how I came to living the teaching so that I can put it in context. I was very fortunate to meet my first teacher at 22. And with that teacher, studied a whole range of teachings from Toltec to Buddhism to Kabbalah. And it just became very clear. Enlightenment is impossible. Even after 13 years, it's impossible. So I gave up. I gave up on the whole idea that liberation is possible because trying to do liberation is impossible. And in that moment, I took stock and I asked myself, well, what is at least the function? Because if liberation is not possible, then at the very least, I can serve the field and I can fulfill my function. And as this has got a very much a communicator design, I enrolled for a coaching course so that I could enhance my communication skills to at least fulfill the function that I was born for. And of course, attending the coaching course is where I found Vedanta, as these things tend to happen. And through studying Vedanta, the first thing that became really, really clear is that I was relieved from the burden of the doer, the belief that I'm making this all happen, that unless I participate, nothing happens and nothing gets done. And the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. Ironically enough, at the time I was also guided to do an MBA. Now, coming to self-knowledge, MBA, that sounds very contradictory, doesn't it? But as I started with the MBA from the standpoint of knowledge and who I am as awareness, it became very clear that even the one thing that we think we do, academic studies, was happening all by itself. No doubt I had to participate. No doubt I had to sit down. No doubt I had to attend the lecture. But ultimately, how it all flowed together, how it moved, was far beyond the capacity that I could claim. And that broke a really, really last piece of thinking that I'm doing it. Because academic studies, as I say, is such a point where we want to claim it, where we want to own it. That giving up, before coming to Vedanta, is a very important part. Because that giving up is a giving up from the jiva, the person that we think we are, that we can do this. Now, of course, with self-knowledge, I know it's not possible to do this because you can't do something that you already are. But unless that part of you gives up, releases the idea that it can control it, you will keep trying to grasp it. Because Vedanta itself is very easy. You sit, you listen to the teacher explain the nature of the self and reality. However, the tricky part is acquiring the qualifications necessary for the mind to recognize and reorientate for that basic truth of who we are. I will be eternally grateful for my first teacher that helped with this process of getting the mind ready so that it was at a point where it literally would be able to reorientate itself because it was no longer holding on. Now, how do we acquire these qualifications? Karma yoga, to purify the mind, a firm understanding and commitment to Dharma, and clarity with regards to your values, because they will determine which choices and actions you take. And then, of course, the mind needs to become steady within these three. None of these are doing as the doer understands doing. Discrimination looks like doing, but it's actually more focus or paying attention. It's where we place our attention for how long, our focus. All these activities are preparational. They are only preparational because liberation is the correction of your identity, and that requires knowledge, and that's not a doing. So, I will discuss these three as they build on each other. Karma yoga, show up, give your best. The rest is not up to you. I can teach that to students, but I can also teach that to any business person. if you show up and you give your best, is there anything else that you could have done? No. Otherwise, it wasn't your best. Which means from the beginning, it takes the burden off you of constantly questioning if you are good enough. Because if you show up and you give your best relative to the situation. For instance, as you can hear, I have a bit of a throat thing. So today is not a great day to do a lot of talking besides from the teaching part. But on another day, I'm actually able to talk for 10 hours at the practice. So your best is not this default benchmark where you have to reach every day. Your best is taking the circumstances of the day. What is your best in that? And then, of course, to detach from the results, because the results are not up to you. This, of course, is an entry-level understanding of karma yoga. You can participate in life. You don't make life happen. You are but one speck on the spectrum of elements that makes any action possible. And if you don't claim the results, you start to disentangle the hold of the doer that's trying to claim the I, myself, and me made it happen. Yet this basic understanding of participating in action and surrendering is not deeply rooted. And hence, everyone is trying to do liberation. Now, the more advanced understanding is, of course, that you offer all your actions to Ishvara, to the divine. As Ishvara is the giver of results, it is the only logical choice to make. If we understand that Ishvara is everything, and that results are up to Ishvara, it will bring a restful surrender and the acceptance of what is. So let's take a moment. Ask yourself, are you accepting what is? Are you restful? Can you let go of your grip once you've acted, participated? If you find yourself obsessing, about the results of your actions, go back to the knowledge about Ishvara and who is in control. Because unless this knowledge is deeply rooted, excuse me, we will not offer up the results of our actions. We won't be able to accept what is as it is. So the first one, karma yoga. The second one, dharma. They are intertwined, aren't they? The appropriate action in a timely manner is critical. So when I explain dharma, I explain the triangle of dharma, that every action that you're about to take, you need to run through the triangle of dharma. of course, universal Dharma, non-injury, in word, in deed, in thought. The situation. How do we apply this non-injury into the situation? Now, that situation might differ. Irrespective of the situation, the application of non-injury to the situation is what we need to look at. And then very lastly, swadharma, your relative nature. Because your relative nature contributes to what would be the appropriate action. And if you truly understood this, if you understood that non-injury applied to the situation, taking into account your relative nature, you would never tell anyone again what to do. Because how could you possibly know? You do not have their relative nature. So Dharma is how we interact with the field. The basis of the Yoga Sutra, the yamas, advise us on how to interact with the field. The yamas prescribe on that we need to abstain from harming others, non-injury, abstain from uttering falsehood, stealing, incontinence, and greed. That is for how we need to interact with the field. If we show up and we give our best, and we let go of the results, and by showing up and giving our best, we run our actions through the triangle of Dharma, our actions will be appropriate. Now, the second pitfall that I find is what I call the I know program, or your opinion. So there's a beautiful story. I'm not quite sure where the story is from, if it's from Zen Buddhism or etc. About a student that is visiting his teacher, and he is so happy to see his teacher, and he just keeps telling him about all the wonderful things that he knows, and he just keeps talking and talking and talking to tell his teacher how well he's doing. His teacher invites him to have a cup of tea, and as he's pouring the tea, he just keeps pouring into the student's cup. And of course, the cup is just overflowing and overflowing, and the student screams about, "Teacher, you are spilling the tea." And the teacher, of course, says, "And that is what is happening to you. Your cup is so full that there's no way to fill anything in it." This is one of the biggest impediments to liberation that I see. Liberation will cost you your most prized possession, your opinion. We are not meant to take the teaching and take our opinion and weed out anything from the teaching that we don't like to fit our opinion. It's meant to work the other way around. We are meant to use discrimination and see if your opinion is aligned with the teaching, and whatever of your opinion is not aligned with the teaching, to discard it. Unless you value knowledge and liberation and have a burning desire for it, as Yogananda said, as a drowning man desires air, you will choose your opinion as it is more important to you. I think James calls it the yeah but monster. Rory also mentioned this qualification, excuse me, in his talk, and he called it, you have to be like a dog with a bone about liberation. We will hold on to anything that we value above liberation. Our values advise on what we do, where we focus, and how we act. You only have two currencies: your attention, where you place it for how long. And your values will determine how you spend your currency. So, in this moment, let's pause and ask yourself, what do you value? Do you value peace? If you do, are you in conflict constantly? Because conflict can only happen if there's two willing partners. Do you value silence? If you value silence, is your life still? Do you mind the qualification of control of the senses, of speaking? Do you value liberation? Do you focus on the knowledge? If you are struggling to accept the teaching, there is an opinion that you value more than the teaching. Do you value respect? And if so, do you value respect to be given or receive? Because if you value respect and you assume that it should be given, you will have no peace, because no one else prescribed to that value. Nobody owes you that value because you prescribe to it. Values are meant for your focus. If you require others to uphold your values, you will surely suffer. And from the Yoga Sutras, the niyamas is values for our inner world. And they are observing purity, contentment, willful self-denial, study, and surrender to the Lord. Discipline, willful self-denial, is probably the purest form of self-care you will ever find. Because you will take action in the moment that will be beneficial for you in the time to come. That's proper self-care. The process of Vedanta is very simple. You listen to the teaching, you reflect on the teaching, you assimilate the teaching. So do you value studying every day? Do you value releasing any belief that you have that is not in alignment with the teaching? I value Vedanta. It is liberating. It's clearly liberating. Scripture-based and liberating. Whenever I start an introductory course, I offer a year-long introductory course. So that's what I see as an introduction to Vedanta. Is a 50 hours introduction to the concepts of Vedanta. So whenever we start the class, I always ask the class if they've ever met anyone that's completely contented and satisfied. And of course, they would always say no. And I would raise my hand and I would say, well, now you have. And the reason why I do that is simple. I need them to understand that the teaching is freeing, it's liberating. And secondly, I need to assure them that I do not need anything from them. They are in the class because they want knowledge. Because whatever they thought they knew has not brought them to complete contentment and satisfaction. And of course, that's why we teach on donation, because how can you put a price on a priceless teaching? However, what you donate shows what you value. And I've noticed after a few years of teaching, the students that stays with Vedanta are the students that donate because they value the teaching, which brings me back to your values again. Vedanta works because it not only discusses who you are as awareness, but it also teaches about the field and the place of the jiva in it. And without that knowledge, you will not rest in who you are. So now, without assuming the meditative position in any way or form, please just close your eyes for me. I just want to do a little exercise with you. So just take a nice deep breath. This is an observation exercise. It's not meant to change anything. Now, from this point of observation, on your next breath, just feel for any discomfort in the physical body. Remember, we are not trying to change anything. We are simply observing it. Just scan through the physical body, observe anything It's in the physical body without changing. And on the next breath, we're just going to take a step back as if we are stepping out of the body, and then we're just going to observe those discomforts that you've just observed in your body as if we're looking at it from a vantage point outside of the body. Don't try and get too fancy, just look at those discomforts in the body, just observing them. Still, we're not changing anything. Now, on the next breath, let's take another step back. Now look for any thoughts, any emotions. They might be attached to some of that discomfort or not. Just observe them. Don't try to change them. And now on the next breath, take another step back. Now look at your values, how you determine. See how they are connected to your thoughts and your feelings or not, to the physical body. Remember, we are just observing. We are not changing. And here you can also become aware of whatever you believe your purpose is, your swadharma is, your relative nature. Now, bring your focus to the fact that you are the one that's observing all of this. Your relative nature, your function, your thoughts, your feelings, your body is simply appearing to you as awareness. You can open your eyes. You have always and will always be awareness. There is nothing to be done to get there. It is all there is. Whole, complete, unconcerned, awareness shining as existence. Liberation is not finding it, unearthing it. It is simply taking your attention of all the other things and bringing it to who you are. Whole and complete, unconcerned, awareness shining as existence. I use the word unconcerned very specifically. Concern is a very easy indicator for when you are identifying with the subtle body, with the person, instead of who you are as awareness. Everything we've discussed tonight is only to ensure that your mind can keep the focus of who you are. Who you are has never changed and will never change. But unless your mind is prepared, you will not be able to rest in awareness as awareness. So, this talk was compiled through using Essence of Enlightenment, Vedanta, the Big Picture, and The Power of No, which are all available from the Shining World website. I thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Lucua. We open up to questions. If anybody would like to ask Lucua some questions, please do.
And let's see, we have to,
I have a question. You said there were, I think, 5 things, and I got a couple of them. I think one was incontinence, another one, and I missed them.
Okay, so they are actually from Ramji's book, The Power of No. They are called the yamas. So the first yama is abstaining from harming others, non-injury.
Okay.
The second one is uttering falsehoods, meaning lying.
Okay.
The third one is stealing. Incontinence you've got, and then greed is the fifth one.
Now, what does incontinence mean in this context?
Sorry?
What does incontinent mean in this context?
In this context, it means that you have respect for the opposite gender and that you take care of how you spend your sexual energy and not just waste it by running after it to think that it will fulfill you for who you are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, it's also called chastity. They often call it chastity.
Thank you.
Sometimes
I did have another quick question. You were mentioning the triangle, universal dharma, the situation, and then swadharma. When you talk about swadharma, does that refer to the jiva?
Yes, your relative nature.
The your, is that the jiva, or are you speaking from the jiva or ego's perspective for your relative nature? Or are you talking about infinite Brahman relative nature?
Well, relative nature means the design that your jiva has that makes it the functionality that's meant to click back into the field to fulfill whatever function it has been created for.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Beautiful talk, Lucua. Really enjoyed it. You had us in samadhi.
One more small point on those 5 niyamas. One of them is called non-stealing, and it doesn't mean physical stealing of objects necessarily, although that's included. Probably most of you people don't steal things from other people, but it basically means giving fair value. It's a positive thing. it's giving a fair value to every situation rather than extracting
Yeah,
value for yourself. It's making sure that you contribute more than you take from a situation.
yeah, because there are many ways to steal. You could steal emotionally, you could steal psychologically,
Yeah,
you could steal people's energy. There are many ways to look at that.
yeah. And particularly important for needy people who are not aware that they're needy. They glom onto you, they like you, they're attracted to you, they praise you, they serve you, they love you, quote unquote. But they're actually drawing energy rather than contributing energy to you. There's a net loss, and you'll feel that around a person. You'll feel like you'll hope that they'll go away because they're actually sucking your energy. That's how they're living. They're like parasites, you could say. And that's not their fault. You can't be impolite and fob them off because they're not aware they're doing this. This is just something that that you develop through your own self-awareness to see if you're actually, the person is interested in what you're saying and is responding appropriately. Because once you start sucking a person's energy, they lose interest in you very quickly. So
What I thought was really important that you brought up was that you made the personal opinion the focus point of where people get stuck in terms of their commitment to the knowledge and also in terms of their attachment to the jiva, how difficult it is to negate that program. And I think that's really a good way to look at it. It's a really good indicator of where you're at in that process. If you're still very much attached to how you see things, your opinion, because that's really, it's like a, what do you say? It's like a marquee advertising the presence of the ego. If you're very attached to your opinion, it means that you're not very attached to moksha. I thought that was a really good point. Very important point.
Did you see Elliot's comment, Lucua?
Sorry, let me just see.
He said, I'll read it if you don't mind. It says, I don't think you would mind if we said as a synonym for unconcerned would be a sense of lightness. And that concern is synonymous with excessive seriousness and humorlessness.
I don't really agree with that.
Well, what's your?
I think there's some, I think you can use it, but I think the way you're using it is somewhat different. I think it's the sense of worry that the jiva has. The jiva is the warrior, the one that's worried about results, about not getting what it wants or avoiding what it doesn't want. I think that, yes, there is an excessive seriousness involved, but that's not the only thing involved. I think it's basically fear.
There's a lot of virtue around caring and being concerned.
Yeah.
As if caring and concern were something special. I think that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a distinction.
Yeah, go ahead, Elliot.
No, there's a distinction between, rather than seriousness, I like to use the word focus or intention as a good synonym for serious: focus, intentionality, earnestness. But when it's excessive seriousness, then there's ego, there's significance, there's identity involved in the activity, as opposed to the activity by itself.
That's
But it's
good.
more like a side effect than the actual thing. I think the concern, the worry, is what creates that feeling of seriousness and that ego identity.
Well, concern implies ego involvement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, yeah, it is. It's the jiva that's concerned.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
I mean, nothing wrong with it if it's concerned for the right things.
Yeah.
If it's concerned for knowledge and truth and peace and contentment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then that concern is, a beneficial, a positive value.
Mhm.
So. Good.
any more questions, anybody? Now's the time to ask
You
them.
got us all, you stopped our minds. My mind's not working
Yeah,
very.
we're all in somebody.
Uh,
Yes, I agree with this, Leonix.
That's
Yeah,
always the Alex says.
thank you, Lucua. It is really powerful to assimilate the concepts of karma and dharma in such concise words. I thought so too. Once you start to meditate on that, you can unlock the subliminal but implicit meaning. Yes. There are many people saying thank you.
That was Susie. Bye, Susie. Susie's South African. Do you know Susie Lucua?
Susie Roy.
Susie Roy?
I don't.
Oh, she's from South Africa.
No, I don't know.
I'm not sure of such clarity.
Okay, yeah. Namaste to all, Sue. So Sue, I like the word sincere or sincerity over seriousness or being serious. Lovely evening to all. Gehrman, I really like the emphasis on what do you value?
That's such an important
That
word.
makes it clear. Yeah, what are my values? Fearless moral inventory.
Yeah,
I need to be like really say, what is my value here?
yeah.
So,
Well,
I see
wonderful.
I see there's a question about, sorry, I just want to see who this is. I think it's Melanie, just a little bit up. Do you have any advice for how to deal with the opinions that arise in consciousness when you are listening to the teaching? Listen and listen and listen some more.
Well, yeah, you have to evaluate them in light of the scripture, and if they don't match up, you have to discard them. It's as simple as that. Because they will come up. They inevitably will, especially in the early stages.
this thing about opinions is really important.
Very important.
This is extremely important.
Yeah, if you're that attached to your opinions, you will not progress with something. You just can't go forward. Simple as that.
Sorry, I got a question on that. Hi.
Hi.
I just find it, you got to have an opinion with some things. Surely, maybe not opinions about other people. Those naturally you should discard because you're not going to change them or their values and you can't let it affect you. But in terms of having opinions about decisions you make, it's so much better and effective than being indifferent. So surely there's productive opinions as well.
Yeah, I think you need to differentiate between, are you talking about self-inquiry or you're talking about life in general? Obviously, we need opinions about how to respond appropriately to certain life situations. And then you need to have an understanding of the situation and your values in place. But when it comes to self-inquiry, I think the most important issue here is what is your life orientation, your opinions regarding that need to be assessed in light of the teachings.
So basically, if your opinion is anything, if it's attached to your ego at all, then it's generally not an opinion that must be held on to, basically, from what I understand.
Yes, I think again, like Lucua pointed out, you need to use that triangle that she used. I mean, there will be three factors at play. There's the universal dharma of non-injury, there's the situation, and there's your nature. So you have to decide what is appropriate action in light of those three. And whether your opinions serve that, do they serve the truth of you as a person? And do they serve you the universal truth? So each situation is different.
Well, but maybe the issue is, when an opinion is converted to knowledge, then it becomes a conviction. and a conviction that, you know, that, you know, freedom is my nature,
Yeah,
and that I'm committed to actualizing that freedom in my daily life as I live day to day, moment to moment. That would no longer be an opinion. You know, but you know, these positive values need to be not just opinions. I believe I should be doing such
Yeah.
and such, but that really know that say contentment or non-injury is really my number one value, whatever.
that's right. And that's no longer an opinion.
And that no longer could, you wouldn't call that an opinion.
I mean, we all have opinions about life. The point is to know that it's just an opinion and it's not important. That you're not, you know, your identity is not attached to that. You can have an opinion about politics or about the country you live in or whatever. They don't matter. They're just opinions. They're yours. You see them as objects known to you, and you're not really identified with them. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when it comes to self-inquiry and being a true inquirer and dedicated to the teaching, you need to have your life values aligned with the teaching. There you can't have opinions about the teachings. As Lucua said, you can't make Vedanta fit into your idea, your personal opinions about what it should be or previous beliefs. And everyone has them. Most people come to Vedanta with lots of ideas from other sources. And if they don't stack up, they have to go.
And another point connected to this is that when you actually understand the value of Vedanta, you lose
Interest in
control.
opinion.
Well, you lose
Yeah.
control of your actions.
Yeah,
The scripture then prescribes, it gives you a provisional identity as a karma yogi.
yeah,
And as a karma yogi, your reaction, what you do and how you react to situations is controlled by that identity that you've assumed. So that's why Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, he's explained to him about karma yoga. First he explains to him jnana yoga, that he's free and so forth and so on, and he's eternal and immortal and so forth. Then he explains to him karma yoga, and then he makes a very interesting statement. He says, therefore, Arjuna, be a karma yogi. He sees that Arjuna is not capable of being a jnana yogi, in other words, taking a stand as awareness and just doing his job as his swadharma, because his swadharma is to kill people. He's a warrior. That's what he does. So, and he doesn't want to do what he's supposed to do, what he's trained to do, and so he's not going to be fulfilling himself by avoiding those particular actions. But Arjuna, Krishna then gives him this secondary identity, and he says, well, think of yourself as a karma yogi then. You know, identify as a karma yogi, and then as soon as you do that, then it's not up to you what you do. then how you do it and so forth and so on. The situation, of course, is going to present all kinds of different opportunities and different actions to be done. But what you'll always do them with the idea that I'm a karma yogi, not that I'm this samsari, right? Trying to gain a particular any result other than what freedom.
and the great thing is that you can't fail. And even if you do fail, you're not the one that failed. You're not the failure.
You know,
If you've taken appropriate action and acted dharmically and truly surrendered to Ishvara.
yeah, that's a good one.
There's another question here.
Where's that?
Do you have an advice for how to deal with your?
Oh, that's the
I
one
know
we
you've
just,
done it already.
we just
but
did that
we're
one. That's Melanie.
listening to it. Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you, Lucua. It's really powerful to simulate the concept. Now we've done that.
No, I think we got
Yes,
them all.
we've got them all. No, there's two new ones. Go down.
And this is German. Loved a very clear teaching. Georg, next to the two obstacles to liberation you mentioned, Lucua, how much would you think the physical environment matters? How much does it require a calm and sattvic environment? That's a good question.
Well, if you live from the point of karma yoga and dharma yoga, by definition, over time, your environment and what you focus on will become very calm, because you're no longer running after everything as if you are looking for something to fulfill you. So an external environment that you focus on for being calm is important, as long as you don't think that the external environment is going to tell you who you are. It should actually rather come from being whole and complete and full, that you bring that to the environment, meaning doesn't matter what's happening in this environment, because sometimes it can become busy. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes the schedule that Ishvara gives me is just insane. It's just absolutely, and yet I'm not doing anything, so it doesn't disturb, because all I need to do is show up and give the best. If it's in a teaching or if it's in a practice, it doesn't matter. If I show up and give the best, it becomes calm in any way. So I think it's a bit of a working together with the two, that you do as much as you are able to bring it to calm in your environment, but always knowing that it's actually coming from the inside, the calm.
Absolutely, well put. And that answers the next question.
Yeah, Leona, she quotes Georg's, and then she said, following Georg question, does the environment
Does environment influence?
does the environment influence the path of self-realization, or it's the sattvic nature of the jiva?
Well, she's just answered the
Yeah,
question.
just answered
You've
that.
just answered that question.
Here's iPad. Thanks you, Lucua, for the enlightening talk. I'm a first year studying Vedanta. The challenge I find is to applying what I learned practically today. I look forward to the 16th of September, which will guide us on the practical methods. Oh, so this person's going to take your course, huh? Is that what-
Yes, on the 16th of September, we holding a day that, because I teach different courses, all the students don't know each other. So we're going to hold a day where we're going to talk about what's the practical application of living Vedanta on a day-to-day basis. And we'll also showcase those cards that we've been working on from Karin. We'll showcase those cards for the first time and work with them with students.
Oh, cool. You're doing great work, sweetheart. Really good.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Here, let's see, Sarah said, thank you, Lucua. Really blew my mind when you shared about not being the doer when you earned your MBA. Loved your talk. Cool.
I actually did ask the question why Ishvara needed another MBA, to be quite honest, because surely there's enough MBAs in there. But Ishvara was very insistent.
No, Ishwar has made so many morons that Ishwar needs some people that actually can think and actually get educated. So that's why he needs more and more MBAs.
Martin says, an opinion is always due to lack of complete information, otherwise it would be firm knowledge, isn't it? Well, the thing is, in Metta, you can never really have firm knowledge about anything. It depends if you're talking about knowledge of the self or knowledge of objects. If you're talking about knowledge of the Metta world, you can never really be certain of anything. Therefore, it's always an opinion, really. There are certain things you can be sure of, like physics and the natural
Well,
laws,
yeah,
that don't
that's say,
change. But with most things in the Metta world, it's, everything could be true or false, depending on your point of view.
events,
Yeah,
momentary events. But
that's
there's
why,
certain basic principles that
yeah,
you can always count on. If there aren't basic principles that you can count on in daily life,
yeah,
you're not gonna get out of bed in the morning. You'll have no incentive to actually act
No,
in a purposeful way to achieve a particular result. So,
I think that's why opinions are a bit worthless, because they aren't real in the sense of they change.
yes.
So I shouldn't
Just
stick
know that
to
you
it
have
too
one.
much, because if
Don't
I
put
got
too
more
much.
information or I grow and learn, opinions change. So I shouldn't stick to a certain opinion until it is firm knowledge.
yeah, that's
I mean,
right.
even the scientific world, everything's as true as they know up until this point, but there's always new knowledge coming.
Yeah, that's
coming
true. Yeah.
forward. So as long as you know you have an opinion and you're not too attached to it about the mature world, there's no harm in that.
Like Chat GTP,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's got an opinion on that because they don't know how it's going to turn out. Is it going to turn out a force for good or a force for evil or whatever it is? As if that were the only two choices, but it's going to have it's going to have a positive effect and it's going to have a negative
Like
effect,
everything else.
like
in the
everything
mature world.
else.
But when it comes to self-knowledge, now that's something that's always good. You can count on that. That doesn't change because it's not an object of knowledge. So that's the distinction.
This is really interesting, this satsang, the way people
Yeah.
coming in and going out. It's
Yeah.
very interesting and contributing. I love the way this thing has been unfolding over the last couple of 2 or 3 years. This
Yeah.
is, huh?
Especially now that we're making it inclusive of all the teachers and trying, bringing them in and giving them a voice on our platforms. We find that extremely rewarding. And I
Yeah.
think it's very helpful to everybody out there to have access to these wonderful teachers, know that they're there and that you can write to them. So, and your contributions have been amazing. You've been a wonderful teacher, Lucua. And we're really honored to have you on board. We
Yes,
really are.
indeed, absolutely.
You're a very fine example of living the teachings. We really honor you for that. Well, I think that we've run out of questions, so I think there's no more questions tonight.
Okay,
Thank you all. With Tuesday, we're leaving for the US. So our next satsang will be probably the last weekend of the month, but we will let you know. And what we have on the schedule is our good friend Suzanne, also known by the name Suze, who's going to give a chanting lesson. So that's next on the agenda, but we'll let you have more details about that. So we hope to see many of you at Trout Lake, those of you who can make it.
yeah,
And we look forward to seeing the rest of you in a few weeks' time.
okay, good.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so much, everybody.
that
Excellent.
was Anne.
Yeah.
There's one here from Rolando.
Orlando says, fentanyl addicts ride my bus every day. Even though I'm aware of the reflective bliss concept, I find myself repulsed by them. The lower the consciousness of the whole bus. What do you suggest? Learn to enjoy lower consciousness as you drive the bus. I don't think you're going to get a lot of benefit from expecting the fentanyl addicts to pay attention.
Yeah, because it tells you in the Bhagavad Gita that you should be indifferent to good, pleasurable, and impleasurable experiences.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's not so easy.
Take it as prasad.
Huh?
Take it as a gift. Yeah.
It counts, it
Thank
counts when it's hard.
Are you going to come? Are you going to make it to Trout Lake, Rolando?
Absolutely. You're going to see me there.
Oh, cool. All right.
Excellent.
Yeah, me and Lucua de Preez are different. She's very serious and I'm very jovial. Well, anyway, it's very hard, when they come in, and Ramji, when they come in, they steal from the moment they get up in the morning till the moment they come in at night. They go into Target, they go into Safeway, they come in with.
Can you feel it? Yeah. Good.
Yeah. They come in with suitcases, they steal, and then they just walk in, and the bus helps them get away. And
Well, see,
sometimes it frustrates me.
Ishwar's got to look after the bad guys.
That's true.
You know, Ishwara has, according to your dharma, Ishwara gives you what you want.
Yeah.
In India, the criminal castes have their own deities,
Mhm.
and the deities are meant to protect them. I could tell really interesting stories about that.
Mhm.
How these criminals
Yeah.
worship God with incredible faith and intensity, and are basically protected.
Yeah.
And even when they get to jail, they're quite happy there.
Mhm.
So
Well, Luca was speaking about your Swadama, your nature. See,
yeah,
and my nature wants to beat them. Like Arjuna wants to kill me. I want to beat them up. You know what I mean? I said, straighten out. I want to beat you up. I'll put you in a concentration camp. I'll subject you to yoga, to meditation, because that's what you need. And the society won't do that. And that's how I feel sometimes inside. And then I just offer it to God and I say, God, it's all, I know that you're doing all of this stuff. So amen. That's it. Yeah. Okay, I'll see you at Trout Lake.
okay, everybody. See you when we see you by God's grace. Take it easy, and thanks again, Lucua.
Thank you. Thank
You
you,
bet,
Ramji.
sweetheart.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.